5:05 at Scott BR on the Mighty 1090. Linda's jumping out of her booth because her favorite person on planet Earth has just walked into the studio.
I love him.
I know you do.
Coach Fisher,
Yes.
He's awesome.
Coach Steve Fisher, the Aztec basketball coach, is in studio. Good afternoon, Coach. How are you?
I am honored to be a part of the show.
Really?
And we honored to have you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for coming in. I just want to hear from your perspective. Tony Gwynn, a colleague, because, you guys both had coaches up at San Diego State, inside the athletic department. Memories that you might have about Coach Gwynn.
I think, first of all, I'd like to echo the sentiments of people that knew him a lot better than I do, that talked about Tony the man as opposed to Tony the guy that won 8 batting titles and 15-time All-Star. I got to know him on a front where anything he could do to be helpful to anyone, he was always there. And we mentioned off the air, when we would bring recruits in, the fathers would want to see Tony and meet Tony. So we would strategically time it where we'd get over to the field, the diamond, and Tony would have a chance to shake hands, and the parents would be in awe. And one particular instance, Greg Nelson, we had a Aztec function, a fundraiser, and Tony offered his house and dinner for like 16. Greg bought it, and I was one of the guests, and it was unbelievable. We went to his home, and you walk into his house, and they had 2 of the little mobile things that the little kids ride in, electric carts, in the middle of the living room, and walked in, and a shrine, every piece of memorabilia you could see from floor to ceiling. And Tony put on a spread for all the people that came. And the people that came, they brought balls and bats and all. I think Tony was not expecting that for Tony to sign, and he was so gracious. The people from his church were involved, cooking and serving, and he and Alicia could not have been more warm and welcome. They made you feel as if you had known them forever, and I think that was one of Tony's greatest strengths.
Steve, the thing that I think of when we were getting you on the show, the fact that Tony just naturally inquisitive, and being a former basketball player until he decided to give it up and play baseball. I mean, do you remember many of the conversations you had about just strictly basketball?
Tony was a guy that, as much as he knew about every sport, and basketball in particular, he would come in and we would talk about a game. Tony loved basketball, and he would talk about our team, and he never wanted to say anything about what we were not doing well. He always found ways to talk about all the good things that our kids and our coaches were doing in the program, and he just was a unique guy. But he would come in, and we would hash over games on a Monday after a Saturday game.
Coach Steve Fisher in studio on Scott BR on the Mighty 1090. It's interesting that he might come to you and just talk basketball, because it wasn't just that he loved basketball, it was that he probably also loved San Diego State basketball a lot. So I assume that as the program started to get better in the last, let's say, 6, 7, 8 years, that he might want to come and be around it a little bit more.
Our players knew. We reminded them to check the media guide and the record book. Tony Gwynn was a terrific basketball player. Started for San Diego State for 3 or 4 years, still holds the career assist record at San Diego State. It's just like you watch him in baseball. Some few folks have a unique ability knowing how to play, and Tony knew how to play, and he knew how to play basketball. He knew how to make others better, and he did that continually.
Billy Ray mentioned that Tony Gwynn was one of those guys who was always kind of working, whether it was like, studying video of himself swinging or picking the brain of Ted Williams. Was there ever times where you guys just talked coach to coach, philosophy of coaching?
Not really. I mean, we talked about recruiting, which is so different in baseball than it is in basketball. You recruit the biggest name in the room basketball-wise. Now, you're going to have him for at least a year. And with Tony, you get all these players, and all of a sudden they're drafted out of high school and sign these pro contracts, and what you thought you had, you didn't have. So we talked about how to blend the team together, how to formulate a team, and all the nuances that go on at the college level as opposed to in the major league professional level.
Yeah. Hard to believe this week, right, Coach? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys knew. I said that I thought the symbolism of the press release and, he's still the coach, but here's the executive coach. For me, I sort of read that as we're making this symbolic gesture. Did you guys know that this was happening or that we were close to the end?
No, I don't think anybody truly knew how gravely ill he was. They were very private with that. In fact, we had a memo going around saying that anyone that had extra vacation or sick days, this was about a month ago, that Tony had used his up, and they would be in need if we could provide. But when he was never visible and never around and no one saying how he was doing, you worried all the more that it was pretty serious.
Well, what's the mood been like? I'm assuming you've been in the office this week. Maybe you haven't, but just around the San Diego State Athletic Department family.
I think there's a somber sorrow that he's Mr. San Diego, Mr. Padre, but he's also Mr. Aztec. He's someone that all of us identify with when we talk about the greatness of San Diego State. Tony Gwynn is the first name that comes out of your mouth. And the point I mentioned, we all have an office in the Fowler Center. Everyone, including Tony, has an office in that building. So even though he was at the baseball stadium more than he was in his office, he was there, and he would walk the halls, and he knew everybody's name. He found a way to give you a pat on the back and a smile. So those are the things that we at San Diego State Athletics will miss and miss forever.
Before we transition into a little talk about Kawhi Leonard and what he accomplished and what it means to San Diego State, I was telling Billy Ray this earlier. If I were coaching, if I were managing the Padres, I would be trying to do anything I could to turn the season around, to make, even though Tony's gone, to kind of make this our spark. Can a team that doesn't always have the best talent win because they've got something else, some other force that's providing them an extra spark? What do you think?
I think without question, we've all seen that happen. Will it happen? Who knows? But there, I'm sure, is immense emotion in that dugout and in that clubhouse, starting with Buddy Black, who's a San Diego State grad, who has probably a stronger relationship long-term than anybody, to make sure that everyone remembers what he brought to the field every single day. I wasn't at the game when they had the number 19 in the right field, and they all went out and to witness that. But he won't have to say too much, I don't think, to get the players to understand we need to every day think about Tony and in his memory. Remember that you have to grind away every single day with what you do. And who knows what could happen. So I think it could, and let's hope that it does.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Coach, let's move on while we have you here, if you don't mind, to Kawhi Leonard. I watched last week as the San Antonio Spurs were annihilating the greatest player on the planet, LeBron James, and his teammates, the defending champions, on their home floor. And I don't mean just beating them. I mean annihilating them. And Kawhi Leonard, the cover of Sports Illustrated, they played the best basketball I've ever seen, and Kawhi was the centerpiece of it all. What were you thinking as you were watching Kawhi Leonard do what he was doing?
We were so proud. He was right in the mix of all of it, and the irony of it is, if you watch the first two games, right, he scored 9 points in each of those two games, and to an announcer, they all said, well, Leonard better play because he's not played for 2 games. If the Spurs want to win, he has to step up and play. He had his coming out party a year ago in the finals when he guarded LeBron. They should have won it in 6 games and lost in 7, and everybody raved about him nationally a year ago. And then he had a wonderful year. And the last 3 games, it was almost as if Kawhi, who doesn't say much but listens intently, heard what others were saying. And I know that they said Popovich said some stuff to him, but he played like I'll show you how good I am. He played so much more aggressive at the offensive end, and you couple that with how he relentlessly guarded LeBron. He deserved to be the MVP of the championship.
But if I would have told you 3 years ago, that kid right there is going to elevate himself, because he was a very good young college basketball player. He was not a guy who, at least in the way I remember it, maybe you see it differently, put an entire team on his back and let him through. You know, he was a good piece of a good team. If I would have told you 2 or 3 years ago, that guy right there is going to elevate to where he's in the same class with LeBron James, would you have believed that?
I think sometimes fate has a hand in what happens. And I remember sitting with him in New York at draft day, and we thought he was going to be a top 10 pick, and he slid to 15th. And when Indiana drafted him, we knew that he had been traded to San Antonio. And that made all the difference for him. He's now a great player on a truly great team, underlined team, that has the type of veteran leadership for a young rookie who walks in the door to say, teach me how it's done at this level. It could not have worked out better for him. And you guys know, and BRU in particular, is you're in a clubhouse or a locker room filled with knuckleheads. You don't know what might happen.
Right.
And he landed in a perfect spot, and he's taken advantage of all of that. I also made this comment. I've never had, and I've had great players, I've never had anyone work harder away from the coaches to improve his game as Kawhi did. Relentlessly
that's the key.
Working in the gym.
Well, because he was not, again, just my recollection, my perception, he was a great defensive player, a great rebounder, but at San Diego State, and again, he was young, he wasn't really a great shooter, was he?
No, he wasn't a great shooter. He led us in scoring 2 years in a row. I think he averaged about 16 a game, 16, 17 a game his sophomore year. But we had a lot of good players, and Kawhi was a teammate. Kawhi was someone that would sometimes pass up a good shot to get a better shot. And he did not shoot the ball, obviously, nearly as well as he does now.
What's the difference?
That's called making it your living and doing it relentlessly every day. You don't have class to go to. You're in that gym 24/7, and he wants to get better. You'll get a lot of kids that think they're better than they are, and you try to tell them, here's what you need to do to improve. Kawhi listens, and he changed his shot a little bit, but he worked continually to perfect his shot. And I think he's someone with great talent, but he's helped make himself into the player that he is.
Do you see any other differences? I mean, when you sit and you watch the Spurs and you watch him, any other differences really in his game that would stand out to you?
BR, not really.
Yeah.
I watched his first year when he was a niche role player. They would run him to the corner, wait there, and he'd wait there until Parker or Ginobili would penetrate and kick it to him to shoot it. He never tried to do anything with the ball other than move it. As he grew in his comfort level towards the end of last year and then this year, he said, I belong here.
Right.
I can do things. And I know that he bought into the future of the organization, the future face of the organization as they move forward. So he's doing a whole lot more, and I think they want him to do more now.
All right, let me ask you this, Coach Fisher. I'm a little skeptical, okay? Here's what I mean. If Tim Duncan retires, I'm just making this up, right? And Tony Parker retires and Manu Ginobili all retire, is Kawhi Leonard a guy that you just say, that's our guy, we just need to build around him? The way like Pat Riley talked this week about LeBron. He's our guy, we need to surround him a little bit better. Is he now in that category where got to build around Kobe, got to build around LeBron? Is he that guy?
Well, he's a third-year player who's played terrific. But if you're going to win and win world championships, you have to have multiple great players. And that's what San Antonio has. I mean, I've been such an admirer of Tim Duncan, and now that I've watched more closely with Kawhi on the same club, I have such great respect for the way he plays. You watch him on the bench, he's rubbing somebody's head, he's making sure everybody else is engaged and ready to go. He doesn't care if he gets 10 points or 20 points. He just wants to win. And that's infectious. And most superstars are not able to do that. So Kawhi can't do it alone. LeBron can't do it alone. But Kawhi can, and I do believe will be what they say he's going to be, and that's the future of the organization.
And the greatest thing about Duncan is he spreads that attitude throughout the locker room, and even the young guys, especially the young guys. I mean, they're starting off on the very best foot that they could start when they get that kind of advice from a veteran like Duncan.
No question, and you watch Popovich. He's unique. Most of the coaches in the NBA, I think, are hesitant. I won't use the word afraid, but I could use the word afraid to get in a superstar's face and tell him what he's not doing.
Yeah.
And you see Popovich, he didn't. It wasn't, well, I'm not going to do it to Tim Duncan. He did it to everybody, and Duncan would sit and look at him when he would chew him out and go sit on the bench, not mope. So if Duncan is treated and reacts that way, then you better do the same thing. I think that's the tenor in the organization.
I honestly think that Greg Popovich might be the most in-control coach of his organization, or at least of his team, of anybody in professional sports. And that includes Bill Belichick. It includes Phil Jackson when he was on the bench. You name your favorite coach, Pete Carroll. I honestly just don't know that there's anybody in pro sports that is still running a team the way Greg Popovich, or at least the way I perceive Greg Popovich is.
I think that's a fair statement. I think that's point well taken. You probably know, and I know you're pressed for time, but he was a Division III coach in Southern California. And he said that he could have stayed there forever. The president left, resigned, and before he did, they had promised him they would help him with a mortgage on a new house. He had been there, I don't know how, quite a few years. The new president came in and nixed the idea. He said, no, we're not going to do that. So he got upset to the point he was friends with Larry Brown, and Larry Brown then offered him an assistant's position with San Antonio. The one article I read in the New York Times, he said, I don't think I would have taken it had they done what they told me that they were going to do for me.
Wow. Amazing. Coach Fisher's in studio. What a week for San Diego State. When you see Sports Illustrated, if you haven't already, Kawhi Leonard is about to dunk a ball, I mean, Michael Jordan style, over the Birdman in the NBA Finals, and up in the upper right-hand corner, Tony Gwynn, and it has his years, 1960 to 2014. So, I mean, we would have been celebrating Kawhi Leonard all week. We would have even interviewed him, but you know, Coach, he doesn't talk very much. I mean,
no, he doesn't.
I mean, we got to talk to him, because if he would just smile. There was a game after, I think it was Game 4. He was being interviewed on ESPN, and I sent a tweet, Kawhi, smile. You know, the guy, he just refuses to show any personality, and I know it's got to be in there somewhere.
Well, he was smiling after that championship when they named him MVP.
Yeah, it was.
And it was so neat for us that know Kawhi to watch the joy that his teammates had in him winning the Most Valuable Player award. They mobbed him and hugged him, and Kawhi, you know, it's awesome. That's awesome. So it truly is, and it's obviously really, really unique and special for San Diego State basketball also.
Well, you tell us, how do you use this? I mean, to me, it's obvious that you just take this cover of Sports Illustrated and you plaster it in the basketball offices at San Diego State, and is this not a monster recruiting tool now?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Every recruit we talk to, did you see the game? Or they bring it up before we do. Boy, I watched Kawhi. How great was he? And I think it further embellishes our point that you don't have to go to the biggest name in the room, a school that has the longest legacy of success. You can go a lot of places, and San Diego State is a mover right now as one of those places, and be a part of greatness, and you will have the opportunity to achieve your dreams like Kawhi has.
You know, the players that played on this past year's San Diego State basketball team, many of those kids played with Kawhi. And I remember Thames sending out a tweet the other day, just as Kawhi had gotten the trophy for MVP, and his tweet was, OMG. That's all. Like, the kids on the team that played with him are like, our former teammate not only got drafted in the first round, not only has played in the NBA Finals against LeBron James, he just won the championship and the MVP. All he had to say was, OMG.
No question. That's what we were all saying. And what it does, I think what it does too, it makes everybody, including some of these pro coaches, look at guys like Thames and Josh Davis that are coming out now to say, let's make sure we're not missing something that we missed when 14 clubs passed on Kawhi.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about, and Coach, we'll let you out of here. I know you got things to do. What do you think about Thames and his chances? I mean, Josh had a great year, but he was a one-year guy here. You know how much the community loved Xavier Thames. What kind of chances will he have? Is he going to get drafted, do you think? Will it be in the second round, perhaps? Will he be on an NBA roster? What do you think about all of that?
Well, I don't know what will ultimately happen. I do know this. He can play in the NBA. He had the kind of senior season where most of the time he was as good as any guard in the United States of America. He's worked out. He will have worked out by draft day next Thursday with 16 clubs. I spoke with him this morning. He was in Sacramento, plane delayed to go to Minnesota to work out with the Timberwolves tomorrow. He's going to go from there to, I think, Orlando to have another meeting and then finalize his last workout with Brooklyn, with the Nets. And they like him. A lot of people like him. I think that he's got a chance to be a second-round draft pick. If he's not drafted, I think he still will have a chance to make a roster. I look at some of these guys playing in the NBA, and Xavier has all the qualities that you win with. He can guard multiple spots. He's good off a ball screen. He's very smart. He's big enough. He can guard. He is a big-time shooter. So, but it takes one club to say, we think you can, and we're hoping that that one club will happen on Thursday.
You want to know the perfect NBA team for Thames?
You're going to give us the perfect NBA team for Thames.
And I guarantee 1,000% that Coach Fisher is going to say, Scott, you're exactly right.
Okay, let's see if you're right.
The San Antonio Spurs. I mean, look, based on Kawhi's personality and meeting with that organization, that coach, that superstar, as selfless as they all are, and you give Thames, who's got a somewhat similar personality type. In other words, he's kind of quiet, goes about his business, a little bit shy maybe. I'm telling you that Thames would fit right in there also. What do you think about that?
I think he would fit, but as I look at the roster, and I haven't studied it,
he doesn't buy it.
I probably say probably not. There are probably other teams better for him. You look at the backup guards that they've got. They've got some really good ones.
I'm talking personality, not roster.
No, well, I think that's a kind of structure and discipline and organization that any player can thrive in, and X would adjust and adapt. And I know that he would be good for them.
Mm-hmm. See, I don't know. I mean, Coach, some players' egos are just too big, and they get to San Antonio, and they're like, wait, the coach tells us what to do here? Oh, that's not the way I thought it was supposed to be. I make more money than the coach. I thought I get to tell him what to do.
They don't draft those kind of guys.
No,
or if they do, they're gone fairly quickly.
Very quick.
Coach, before you go, we have a small gift for you. Just a tiny little gift, perfect for your office. Yeah. I don't know if you're going to use it or not, but Al, could you bring it in here for a sec? This was custom made for you, okay, by our friends at Callaway Golf.
That's right.
All right. And you hear the commercials. We're big into this whole Big Bertha thing, right?
I heard before we came on the air.
Okay, but wait, here, Al, bring that in here. Take a look at this, Coach. This is gonna be perfect in your office because whether or not you want to go out and play, we got the whole red and black bag with the San Diego State colors, and then let me take the head cover off here for you.
You know what, Scott? We talked off the air. I haven't played golf in 15 years that I've been here.
Well, that's going to change.
I might have to take it up again.
Well, take a look
I
at
think
this.
even I could swing this club and make contact with the ball.
We got the Aztec old school logo here for you.
Nice.
And then on the shaft, look what it says here. Custom made for Steve Fisher.
Steve Fisher.
And then even on the bottom of the club, it's got your name right here, Coach Fisher. engraved right into the bottom of the club.
I can't ever have that club strike or touch the
No,
ground.
of course
It's
not.
going to be mounted someplace in my
It's for
office.
your
Yeah.
office.
You got to swing
It's
it, Coach.
perfect for your office.
This is going to be a centerpiece for when we recruit.
Yeah.
You guys will be prominently mentioned in the process.
Isn't that cool?
Very funny.
That's so cool. Thank you very much.
You are
for
so
this.
welcome.
That's so
Yeah.
gracious.
It's
Thank
an
you.
Absolute pleasure. Coach, thanks for coming in and spending a little bit of time with us
Indeed.
this afternoon, sharing some Tony Gwynn stories, thoughts on Kawhi and X. It's great to visit with you always. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, man, for having me. You guys have been great ambassadors for the Aztecs, and you're our flagship station, and Ted Leitner is great. You guys have been fantastic in selling the story of San Diego State basketball, and we greatly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Coach, for even getting us close to the team. We do appreciate that.